What an opportunity to be here with you this afternoon. Somebody asked me, said, Elias, where do you live? I said, I live in the future. Wow. How do you live in the future, they said? It's very easy. I live in New Zealand. That's the first country in the world that sees the dawn of the new day. So I bring you greetings from the future. In fact, if you go to New Zealand, you go furthest to the east. Don't go too far because you fall off the edge of the world. So be careful when you come to visit us. But I was at home in New Zealand, and I looked at my wife and she turned around to me and she said, "How do I feel?" And I said, "Overwhelmed." So she looked at me and she said, "Time for you to change your confession." I was so angry. How could she possibly say that to me? She's my wife. She should be supporting me. She should be helping me. Oh, poor dear, you're not feeling well. No. She just said, change your confession. I was so angry that I just turned on my heels and I went out of the door into my next meeting. Well, you can hardly blame me because though I live in New Zealand, I wasn't born there. In fact, I was born in a country called Libya. Some of you might have heard of Libya. Now, according to number 45, the current president, does that make me a terrorist? Well, I hope not. But the interesting thing is that when I was growing up, there were acts of terrorism every day against me. We heard Peter turn around and say that when he was growing up, he was stupid Peter. Well, I was called an idiot by my father. That was the form of terrorism that came into me every single day. Being told that you're stupid, an idiot, how does that make you feel? Bad. In fact, at the age of 4, maybe 5 years old, allegedly my mother says, I came up to her and said, "Mum, can I have a knife so I can stab my dad in the back and kill him?" Now, I can't tell you, was this a real occurrence or was it just a planted memory? Because the honest truth is she shared this story with everybody. Anybody who wanted to hear, she would tell this story. So how did that make my relationship with my father? Was it a good relationship or a bad? In fact, we lived in London, England, and I went from London, England, all the way to Auckland, New Zealand. Could I get any further away if I tried? So this made me think because in New Zealand, I used to be a senior consultant. And it fascinated me because we heard Tom talk about return on investment, ROI. And it's so important to see what return on investment can you get with your clients. And as a professional speaker or a trainer or a coach, you want to get results for your clients. And each time I went to see a new client, they would verbally vomit all over me when I went to see them because the first thing they did is they complained. They complained about what the last sales manager did when they went in to see them. In fact, I said to my boss, you know what? It'll be easier if you bought me one of those outfits for the painters. You know the ones? You put it all in, it has a zip, it has a hoodie. Because if they throw up all over me, I can just take this off, throw it in the rubbish, instead of taking my suit to the dry cleaners. It'll be much cheaper. Now, why do I say this? Because, as Tom said, if you're not getting an ROI, a return on investment, there's something going wrong. And I came from the IT telecommunications sector. And over 80% of projects did not deliver the business case return on investment they were commissioned on. So I started to think about this. And Joey was just telling us there were 3 Ps in the business. There are also 3 Ps that I saw. And don't worry if you don't have the notes. I'll give you the notes at the end of this presentation. But the first P was the product. And our product was fit for purpose. We couldn't blame the product for not working, that it didn't change what was happening in the company. The second P was the process. We had a process we wrapped around our product. And it's important to have that. Even with gamification, there's a process that works behind it. Even with professional speaking, that Peter had to go through a process to change his goals and set things on a daily basis. Well, the product worked, the process was robust, so it had to be the people that stopped the project from working. And it is exactly the people who stop your projects and your companies from being successful. In fact, I call these the corporate terrorists. You know the corporate terrorists that you see in the business? There are 4 states that the corporate terrorist takes you through. I'm going to tell you what these are. And think about these in your companies that you work with or you work for. And ask yourself whether you understand these states. The first state is what I call dysfunctional. Now, when you're in a dysfunctional state, this is what happens. First of all, people start to do things behind your back. They change things, they start to disrupt, they sabotage. Who knows somebody who's doing sabotage in the work? A couple of hands are going up. You don't have a lot of trust in a company when you're in this state. And there's a lot of finger pointing. It's that person's fault. No, it's that person's fault. Or that one there. So if you go from the first state, which is dysfunctional, you go to the second state, which I call separation. And in separation, this is when you have the good people in your company who are now wanting to leave. Who knows when you have that? Good people leaving the company. A couple of people putting their hands up. You. It's not a good thing because there's no trust. People, you don't like getting up in the morning to go to work. All you're doing is putting out fires. And that's not a very good situation. So the third situation and state is what I call partnership. And if you do not get to partnership, then the trouble is that your company will go bankrupt. So what does partnership look like? That's when you introduce love as a business currency. This is when you start to understand how to build trust and change the culture. And this is where you have the turnaround by looking at the motivation for your staff and your members. And we heard people like Jonathan Lau mentioning how to measure motivation in the staff before. The fourth stage is what I call the meeting of the minds. And this is when you turn around your corporate terrorists and you build trust. You have a culture that works. And now you're in a situation where everybody starts to partner with each other. You're now a team that works properly and drives forward something of benefit to the business. So how do you go around disarming corporate terrorists? Anybody would like to find out? No, I can't see any hands. Oh, double hands there. Okay, so let me just talk to you about some of the principles that I take out of my book, Liberating Your Leadership Potential. On the book cover, some of you might recognize that man. That man there is Nelson Mandela. This is not an autobiography about Nelson Mandela, but looking at some of the wisdom that he has applied in his life that you can now apply in your speaking business or for your customers. The first thing about introducing love is you have to listen. And you have to listen carefully. Listen by asking your employees what they want. Do not expect, especially if you have millennials that are working in your organization, that you will tell them what they want. Ask them. Because if you can listen to them, you will start to understand what means the most to them. There is a great book called The Carrot Principle that Adrian Gostick and Chester Elton wrote. And in this, they have 125 recognition ideas, because we said before that people would work 77% more if they had recognition. Does anybody want to know what these recognition items are? Yes. Yep, okay. Now, unfortunately, I've got some good news, and I've got some bad news. The bad news we'll start off with, okay? I do not have enough time to tell you 125 recognition ideas. Does anybody want some good news? Well, the good news is you can download this straight after my presentation. You can take all 125 and look at them and see what you can apply. So let me give you just one example. Look for good in other people. In fact, they said that in Hertz, they went around to see which was the best performing Hertz branch in America. And they went to see the leader there. And they said to him, what do you do that's so good that you get engagement in your staff? He said, I don't know. I don't do anything special. And as he said that, he put his hands in his pocket and he felt with some coins. He said, I tell you what I do every day. I go around and I look for people who live the brand, live the values of my company. And each time I see them, I take one coin from one pocket and put it in the other pocket. So he said, let's walk around and see. So they went out to where they were greeting their customers. And he sees a lady there in front of the customer. And she notices this customer has not only black trousers, but a black boot on his foot because he's hurt himself. So she says, instead of going to the car, we'll bring the car to the front so it's easier for the client. And he notices this. And he says, thank you for living the values of Hertz. And she has a big smile on her face. Recognition, recognize and look for good deeds. What did it cost this man? Nothing. But what did it do for the productivity? Pushed it up. The second thing you want to do is observe, and observe people carefully. Look at what they do. I'll share a key from the book about recruiting people with a good attitude. Now, there's a friend of mine who loves to play golf, and in New Zealand, we play golf a lot. And he said to his wife before he went out, he said, honey, I'm going to go and have a round of golf with Charlie. He said, have a great time. So he goes out with Charlie. He's on the first tee, tees it off, straight down the fairway. Fantastic. Charlie goes and follows. By the second teeway, he goes, and then Charlie goes and has a big heart attack and falls down. After the round of golf, the man came home and he says to his wife, well, that was an interesting game. He said, how did it go? She says, well, second tee, Charlie sat there, had a big heart attack and fell down. That's awful, she said. He said, I know. All afternoon it was hit the ball and drag Charlie. Hit the ball and drag Charlie. Now, do you have a Charlie in your organization? Somebody who is always complaining. How do you handle that from a leadership perspective? Are you having courageous conversations with people to tell them that they're not doing the right thing? Or are you just allowing them to continue to make problems for your organization? The next thing you want to do when you add love as a business currency is to value your employees. And by valuing them, I'm talking about nurturing key relationships. So here's a nice simple story. I used to work for a company that was the as seen on TV. Do you have infomercials in this country on TV? What's the name of the company that does that? What's O-Shop. And they always say, but wait, there's more, correct? Yeah. So in Korean. So now, in this company that I worked for, we had all the phones coming through, and we had one product that was very, very popular. So we said to people, hey, we need extra help. So we went to accounts, can you help us? Yes. We went to the warehouse, can you help us? Yes. HR, help us. We trained everybody, and all the people were in the phones, answering the phones when they came. And at the end of the hour, they're very happy. They went off to their individual rooms. And that night, I spent all evening writing a thank you note to every single person. And I put it in an envelope, and I went to their desk and left it on their desk. Well, the following morning, I came in early because I had extra work to do. And when I came in, I was just sitting there in my office with my head down when I heard and almost felt the person walking into my office. I looked up. A very large person was there, and she slams the door behind. I knew that wasn't a good look. I looked up at her, and she sees me, and she says, in 20 years, nobody said thank you to me in any job I did. 20 years? When's the last time that you sent somebody a handwritten thank you note? How much does it cost you to do that? These are simple techniques that you can buy or even make your own handwritten thank you note. Because when you want to develop relationships and value people, make sure that you recognize good work and make sure you do that quickly and publicly. These are simple techniques that you should be doing every single day with your customers, with your employees, with your staff, with your family. Shame on you if you're not doing that. Then I want to talk about empathize, the E in love, and do not mistake empathy with sympathy. Two different things. I want to talk to you about empathizing. That's when you stand in the shoes of the other people. In my book, Liberating Leadership Potential, I talk in this book about another key in the leadership principles. And the key here is about doing the right thing. What would you do if your product killed 7 people? You probably know the story of McNeil Consumer Products, a division of Johnson & Johnson, in the 80s in Chicago, found that their extra-strength Tylenol tablets were laced with cyanide and killed 7 people. There was mass panic. Nobody knew what to do or what was safe. So immediately, Johnson & Johnson went into action. They started to build trust by turning around and saying, what are our clients worried about? They went and they took every single product off the aisle from the East Coast to the West Coast and destroyed $100 million of product. $100 million. I can't even think about $1 million. $100 million in 1982. So they could tamper-proof bottles and reassure the public. That made Johnson & Johnson one of the best trusted brands in the world. So the question is, what's the effect of bad leadership on your company? And I was thinking, if Johnson & Johnson's a good example, what's a bad example? What's a bad example? That's right, Samsung with the Note 7, the only device that would spontaneously burst into fire. And what did Samsung do? Nothing. They did not address the problem, the issue that the clients were trying to seek. And when you travel in the airplanes, they have the big announcements a couple of years ago saying, if you have a Note 7 device, you are a leper. Go away. The analysts say that the inaction of Samsung removed and swiped as much as $13 billion off the equity of the company. So I'm going to encourage you to use your OAR, O-A-R, when it comes to building trust. That stands for, first of all, ownership. Take ownership of the situation. Again, you're going to get all these slides, so don't worry if you take all the notes. And you're going to get those 125 recognition ideas. Take ownership. That's the O of OAR. Be accountable. Don't blame somebody else, and take responsibility. O-A-R, ownership, accountability, and responsibility. So I'm going to tell you and teach you to introduce love as a business currency. Because it was interesting for me that when I turned around to my wife and she said, change your confession, I'm going to ask you, are you willing to change what you think about how you act as a leader, as a professional speaker, as a trainer, as a coach? And are you going to change your confession as to what you can do in the marketplace? Because I think that if we do introduce love as a business currency, we can change the way that we all operate in the companies that we deal with. I'm only here in the Philippines for the first time. I've really enjoyed my time here. I have only 2 more days. But I'm also going to give you a chance to explore the full picture. In fact, I do a lot of work with teams around the world on leadership. And I'm going to launch a program that's called the Presidential Think Tank. if you want to find out more about the presidential think tank, I only have room for about 4 or 5 people. Please come and see me at the back of the room and I'll tell you more about the program. But it's not for everybody, but people who want to change their thinking and change their confession. Now, I said to you that I was going to give you the information. So again, take your smartphones out and just go online to gettalk.at.at/DCT. Do this today, and you'll get the downloads of the 125 recognition ideas from the Culture Carrot Works, and you'll also get access to a couple of other reports that I've written and my slides from today. And if you want to get hold of me, I'll be at the back, but here are my contact details. Yes, you can take them, or you can just download them, and you'll get it accurately and clearly. And on that point, I want to say thank you, have a great time, and let's disarm those corporate terrorists.